Until now, Israel has been bombing Gaza and murdering tens of thousands of people in Gaza. Civilian buildings and even hospitals were bombed to the ground, causing even the deaths of premature babies. However, the West stands with Israel and supports it in carrying out murders. But Palestinians are not alone. African countries have risen to offer their support, besides other countries like China, Russia, and the Arab world. Yet the truth is, apart from giving statements in support of Palestinians and condemning Israel, no country took any material steps. Well, this has changed now. South Africa has become the only country to take a bold step and bring a lawsuit to the International Criminal Court against Israel. Since the Israeli military is killing thousands of civilians and committing war crimes, caring a little about human rights, it has to answer for that. Just recently, the South African president stunned the world when he openly announced his intention. He said that South Africa had sent the lawsuit and demanded an important person's arrest, which you will know about in this video. After this news spread, the West could not believe it. So, what will happen now, and will the ICC take any actions, given that it earlier did in the case of Russian President Vladimir Putin? Let's know about that in this video. South Africa has taken a clear stance in supporting the struggle of the people of Palestine. This support extends beyond the political domain, encompassing material assistance, especially in times of great need. Alongside many other countries worldwide, they have chosen to refer the entire action of the Israeli government to the International Criminal Court. The belief is that war crimes are occurring, and this referral serves as their response to the alarming situation. Globally, many individuals are deeply concerned about the unfolding events in Gaza. The nation joined other countries and organizations in urging the International Criminal Court to investigate the situation. As events unfold, particularly at Shifa Hospital, it becomes evident that war crimes are taking place. There is a strong opposition to these actions, and various countries are trying to exert pressure on Israel to immediately cease its actions. South African President Cyril Ramaphosa said that the need for a ceasefire is desperate to save innocent lives, especially considering that a significant number of the 20,000 people who have died in Gaza are children. This situation, where children and babies are exposed to such danger, is unprecedented. Ramaphosa said that it is deemed crucial for the entire world to unite in demanding that the Israeli government halt its actions. Additionally, there is a call on the International Criminal Court to investigate, and legal measures must be taken at the global level. Further, he argued that the Israeli government has perfected a pattern of not adhering to and implementing decisions made at the UN, the Security Council, or other international forums. They have become a law unto themselves internationally, an entirely unacceptable situation. Therefore, Israel must stop committing war crimes and consider that this time it won't be allowed to get away. South Africa is emphasizing the necessity for follow-up by international agencies responsible for upholding the rule of law and global order. The International Criminal Court and the UN Security Council must address this matter. The situation where innocent people endure collective punishment, leading to numerous deaths, is deemed utterly unacceptable on a global scale and needs to be halted. The South African president expressed deep concern about the situation in Gaza, describing it as a tragic transformation into a concentration camp where genocide is taking place. South Africa strongly opposed the ongoing operations, especially the targeting of hospitals, resulting in the loss of innocent lives, including infants, women, and the injured. The disregard for human life is deemed alarming. South Africa, along with many other countries, has referred the entire Israeli government action to the International Criminal Court based on the fact that war crimes are being committed. In terms of aiding innocent people in Gaza, the South African government's support extends beyond political statements to include material assistance, particularly during times of great need. Organizations like NOS are providing help, and the government plans to send medicines and related products to assist people in Gaza, with the assistance also reaching the West Bank, where significant suffering persists. The commitment to the Palestinian struggle goes beyond political rhetoric to practical measures. Regarding the question about legal measures following the supposed arrest of Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu, the South African president clarified that when the ICC finds war crimes committed in Gaza, Netanyahu will be arrested. That's the arrest everyone is talking about now. It should be noted that the ICC has to carry out investigations while staying unbiased. If the findings prove war crimes, then countries like South Africa will ensure that Netanyahu is arrested. This time, the West won't be allowed to abuse the international order for its own benefit. Either it will be forced to comply with the system created for the collective good, or this superficial order will be crushed. Expressing disappointment in the Israeli government's recurrent pattern of not adhering to decisions made at the UN, the Security Council, or other international forums, the president deemed this self-governance internationally unacceptable. The president reiterated the call for an immediate ceasefire and stressed the need for follow-up by international agencies responsible for upholding the rule of law and order globally. What's more, 3 Palestinian advocacy groups have submitted a formal complaint to the International Criminal Court, urging a thorough investigation into Israel on charges of apartheid and genocide. The legal action, filed by Al-Haq, Al-Mizan, and the Palestinian Center for Human Rights, specifically highlights Israeli airstrikes in Gaza. The lawsuit calls for an extension of the existing war crimes inquiry to include the Gaza siege, forced displacement, usage of toxic gas, and the denial of essential resources. The groups argue that these actions should be classified as war crimes, crimes against humanity, and genocide. The complaint seeks arrest warrants for Israeli leaders, including President Isaac Herzog, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, and Defense Minister Yoav Gallant. Although the ICC's Office of the Prosecutor officially launched an investigation into the Palestinian situation in 2021, recognizing war crimes by both Palestinian and Israeli actors, the court has faced criticism for what some perceive as a limited response to the continuous Israeli attacks in Gaza. Emmanuel Daoud, the group's lawyer in the recent filing, underscored the necessity of consistent international justice, drawing parallels with the ICC's verdict against Russian President Vladimir Putin for war crimes in Ukraine. You see, the ICC issued an arrest warrant against Putin. It's because when the West wants, it allows the ICC to work to get the verdicts it wants. But the ICC is paralyzed for world issues that are irrelevant to and against the West. This submission follows a prior complaint by Reporters Without Borders on October 34, accusing Israel of war crimes against journalists in Gaza. According to the Committee to Protect Journalists, Israeli attacks have resulted in the deaths of at least 39 journalists since October 7. During his visit to the Rafah border crossing in Egypt on October 29, ICC prosecutor Karim Khan highlighted the potential criminal responsibility associated with obstructing humanitarian aid to reach civilians. According to Khan, such hindrance could be prosecuted under the Rome Statute. He underscored that civilians, including children and women, possess rights under international humanitarian law, and violating these rights can result in criminal responsibility, as outlined by the Rome Statute. It's essential to note that Israel has rejected the court's jurisdiction and does not formally engage with it. The ICC's mandate empowers it to investigate alleged crimes within the territory of its members or by their nationals when domestic authorities are deemed unwilling or unable to address the matter. The ICC's Office of the Prosecutor confirmed on October 10 that its mandate applies to potential crimes committed in the ongoing conflict. You see, Israel is always given legal cover to avoid legal bindings to continue doing whatever it pleases. In a separate development, South Africa's parliament voted to close the Israeli embassy in Pretoria and suspend all diplomatic relations with Israel until a ceasefire is agreed upon in its conflict with Hamas. The motion received 248 votes in favor and 91 against. Initiated by the Economic Freedom Fighters Party, the motion cited the necessity to terminate relations until the human rights of Palestinians are respected, promoted, and protected. Here's a reminder to please like and share the video and subscribe to our channel to watch more videos on Black culture, history, civilization, and identity. Let's continue now. The ruling African National Congress referred to the current atrocities in occupied Palestine as a basis for supporting the motion. President Cyril Ramaphosa and other senior officials criticized Israel's actions, labeling them as collective punishment and a war crime. What's more, attorneys representing victims in Gaza have formally complained to the International Criminal Court, asserting that Israel's actions constitute genocide. Gilles Devers, a seasoned French lawyer serving as the victim's representative before the ICC, submitted the complaint as part of a four-person delegation. The civil society initiative raises the possibility of arrest warrants being issued against prominent Israeli figures, including Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Devers emphasized the undeniable presence of genocide criteria, citing precedents set by cases such as ex-Yugoslavia and Rwanda. He clarified that this perspective is not merely an opinion but grounded in legal reality. The group contends that Israel has openly displayed genocidal characteristics, evident in actions like cutting off food and electricity to Gaza, targeting civilians and civilian infrastructure, and using dehumanizing rhetoric equating people to animals. The group has also compiled witness accounts from Palestinian victims they legally represent in court. In the face of mounting allegations of severe war crimes in Gaza, Devers urged governments not wishing to be implicated to abstain from supporting Israel. Governments face a crucial choice in aligning themselves with either human rights or genocide, according to Gilles Devers, who emphasized that delivering speeches on international law and human rights while accepting Israel's attacks without action is contradictory. Although Israel does not acknowledge the ICC's authority, Devers argued that this doesn't render the court ineffective. In 2021, the ICC asserted its jurisdiction over grave crimes in occupied Palestinian territories, encompassing potential war crimes by any party involved. Devers' initiative is one of several lawsuits recently presented to the ICC. On November 9th, 3 Palestinian human rights groups called for an investigation into Israel for apartheid and genocide, urging the issuance of arrest warrants for Israeli leaders. Another initiative, Justice for Gaza, aims to unite diverse voices in international civil society, political leaders, and representatives to petition the court. Over 80 signatories, including prominent European politicians like Spain's Ione Belarra and Britain's Jeremy Corbyn, support this petition. Devers contended that the recent bombings in Gaza constitute the most relevant crimes the court has witnessed in decades. He warned that if the ICC takes no action, it could signify the institution's end. Devers claimed they had sufficient evidence for an arrest warrant against Prime Minister Netanyahu. Drawing a parallel, Devers mentioned the ICC's March decision to issue an arrest warrant for Russian President Vladimir Putin's alleged involvement in war crimes in Ukraine. Despite Putin rejecting the verdict and evading the court's jurisdiction, the decision symbolically limited his international travel, including attendance at international forums. The ICC knows Netanyahu is committing war crimes, but is hesitant to issue arrest warrants as the US would get angry at this. You should know that if an arrest warrant is issued, then Netanyahu will be limited to his own country only. It's because if he traveled outside his country, he could be arrested by forces of any country. In Turkey, the Ankara Bar Association has announced its plan to file a lawsuit with the International Criminal Court, addressing Israeli war crimes in Palestine. Sabri Kafif, the head of the association, condemned the international community's silence on human rights violations against Palestinians, especially in the context of Israel's bombing of Gaza, which he characterized as genocide. Kafif underscored the association's commitment to opposing these attacks by initiating legal proceedings with the ICC. He expressed optimism that the ICC would address the grievances and prosecute those responsible for the Israeli assaults on Gaza. But even Turkey is not alone. Iran's foreign ministry spokesman, Nasser Kanaani Chafi, announced that Iran plans to file a lawsuit against Israel at the International Criminal Court over its actions in the Gaza Strip. He mentioned that a special commission had been formed for this purpose, following the resolution of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation summit in Riyadh on November 11. The summit called for an ICC investigation into Israel's alleged war crimes in Gaza. The member states of the League of Arab States and the Organization of Islamic Cooperation instructed their secretariats to document evidence of potential war crimes committed by the Israeli army in the Palestinian enclave. But how has the ICC been handling the lawsuit against Israel? The International Criminal Court began an ongoing investigation into the situation in Palestine in 2021. After the unprecedented surprise attack by Hamas on Israel on October 7, the UN Commission of Inquiry on the Occupied Palestinian Territory, which includes East Jerusalem and Israel, expressed concerns about potential war crimes. The commission pointed to evidence suggesting violations of international law, such as reports of armed groups from Gaza targeting unarmed civilians, civilian massacres, abductions, and the use of civilians as human shields, actions that could implicate Hamas in war crimes and crimes against humanity. On the Israeli side, the commission raised alarms about potential war crimes committed during Israel's counterattack on Gaza, including a complete siege withholding essential resources, constituting collective punishment. The ICC, already investigating alleged atrocities since 2021, is well equipped to address these concerns. While legal accountability through the ICC is a significant avenue, the ongoing hostilities prompt questions about how the conflict might impact the investigation and how the ICC's actions might influence the course of the war. In this situation, the ICC's jurisdiction is already established, eliminating the need for a separate determination. The challenges faced by investigators include evaluating actions by both Hamas and the Israeli Defense Forces to determine if they constitute war crimes or crimes against humanity. As the conflict persists, the interaction between the ongoing ICC investigation and the war dynamics remains a subject of critical inquiry. In March 2021, the ICC launched an ongoing investigation into the situation in the state of Palestine under then-Prosecutor Fatou Bensouda. This decision followed Palestine's accession to the Rome Statute in 2015, providing the ICC with jurisdiction over crimes. In a 2019 statement, the prosecutor asserted the occurrence of war crimes in the West Bank, including East Jerusalem and Gaza. The statement also indicated that potential cases from this situation would be permissible. Following deliberation on the ICC's jurisdiction, the judges ruled in February 2021 that the court had jurisdiction over alleged war crimes in Gaza since 2014 and illegal annexations by Israeli settlers in the West Bank. Both the United States and Israel, not being parties to the Rome Statute, opposed the investigation. In March 2021, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken stated, "The United States firmly opposes and is deeply disappointed by this decision." While Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu condemned it as absurd, labeling it as anti-Semitism and hypocrisy. While anything that goes against Israel is deemed anti-Semitic, this has become an international excuse now. And if we talk about hypocrisy, despite the Biden administration sharing evidence of alleged Russian war crimes with the ICC in July, the US and Israel maintained their opposition to the Palestine investigation. The recent escalation in violence is anticipated to complicate the investigation, but it doesn't signal a halt. Instead, the ongoing conflict is likely to increase the workload for investigators and may result in additional resources for the inquiry. The Office of the Prosecutor affirmed that its mandate continues to apply to crimes in the current context. The statement from the prosecutor, Karim A. Khan, Bensouda's successor, indicated ongoing information gathering and efforts to enhance expertise, along with a request for additional resources. Khan, criticized for delays in prioritizing the Palestine investigation, expressed a goal to visit Palestine in 2023. Despite the ICC's concentration on the Ukraine investigation, which involves significant resources and external support, the Palestine inquiry has faced criticism for being minimally staffed and largely stalled. The smaller size of Gaza and the lack of investigators on the ground are cited as contributing factors. The allocation of resources reflects both geopolitical realities and practical considerations, as the scale of the Gaza conflict significantly differs from the situation in Ukraine. What's more, the UK government faces challenges regarding its stance on supporting an international criminal court inquiry into potential war crimes committed by Israel. David Lammy, the shadow foreign secretary from the Labour Party, advocates for such an inquiry, urging all parties to abide by international law. Despite ICC Prosecutor General Karim Khan claiming jurisdiction, the UK government argued that the court lacks the legal right to interfere. You see, all the Western countries stand united to shield Israel from the ICC. The Palestinians have been striving for ICC charges against Israeli soldiers and politicians for war crimes. The global community's widespread condemnation of the oppression and war crimes committed by the Zionist Israeli apartheid forces has been ignored by the so-called civilized Western leaders, who have quietly supported Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. This backing has emboldened Netanyahu to act arbitrarily, disregarding international and human rights laws. The hands of Western leaders supporting Netanyahu are stained with the blood of innocent Palestinian civilians, including women and children killed in the attacks. Among many war crimes, the bombing of Al-Ali Hospital in Gaza and the complete denial of water, electricity, and food stand on the top. In Al-Ali Hospital, explosions occurred without warning, targeting the center of the courtyard where hundreds sought refuge. Many bodies were left scattered in the hospital's courtyard, and the initial casualty count, initially thought to be 500, rose to 877, including many children. The courtyard water fountain, the sole water source for those without water supply from nearby areas, bore the brunt of the attack. The complete denial of water, electricity, and food supply to an already oppressed population resembling an Israeli concentration camp is yet another war crime. No civilized nation would find it acceptable to deprive civilians, including children, of basic necessities. Recognizing that punishing a civilian population in this manner constitutes collective punishment, and a war crime is a matter of conscience. The root cause of this violence is the Israeli occupation, a settler colonial state imposing apartheid and oppression on indigenous people. All Palestinians desire freedom and equal rights, and supporting that cause is crucial. The Western media now bears the responsibility to reveal the truth of the unfolding atrocities, which are among the worst we could have imagined. A demand is made that the long-suffering Palestinian people have access to electricity, food, and water. This is now an emergency, a crisis evolving day by day in Gaza, and people must stand against it. Not only that, but this time, war criminals should not be allowed to get away with murders of tens of thousands. What do you think? Is Israel committing war crimes in Gaza, and should Netanyahu be arrested? Isn't it true that anyone supporting Israel at this moment becomes the very culprit? Let us know your thoughts on how countries should ensure this time that war criminals are arrested and made an example. Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If yes, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon next to it. We have decided to bring videos on something nobody talks about: the Black culture, civilization, history, and evidence about how glorious Blacks have been. Thanks for watching, and until the next video, stay tuned.